What is going on? Today we are going to talk about 5 things you didn't know about P90 pickups. That's what's in this guitar right here. Before we get going on this, do me a favor and hit the like button and the subscribe button if you like guitar stuff, because that's what we do. We talk about guitar stuff basically every day of the week around here. And P90s are my favorite pickup in basically any guitar, really. They can be used a couple of different ways. We'll talk about that. But let's get into kind of 5 things you may or may not have known about the P90. Number 1 is it was basically the first commercially viable, available pickup that Gibson put in their guitars. To really understand that history, though, let's go back a long way, actually, probably to the 30s. That was in 1946, by the way. In the 30s, they used what became known as the Charlie Christian pickup. That was kind of really the first guitar pickup that went in a guitar to amplify acoustic, right? And it was mostly for jazz, for Charlie Christian. That pickup, though, the reason we say the P90 was really the first kind of really commercially available one is because everything before that was in a lot lower numbers. And if you look at the Charlie Christian pickup, I'll show you a picture of it. It's this huge thing. It had a bunch of metal in it. It was the magnets were huge, and you had to drill 3 holes in the guitar way over here and mount it in the guitar so that it could be. It was this big conglomeration of stuff that went into the guitar. Before the P90, there was the P13, which is basically the grandfather to this, but still not very standard. You'll see them sometimes. My dad actually has a 60s Harmony with this pickup in it. It was referred to as the speed bump because it's got that kind of bump in the middle, and they had speed bumps with no pull pieces and speed bumps with pull pieces. But again, non-standard, very deep, didn't fit in the guitar, didn't fit in a normal guitar very well. So to go into an electric guitar, you have to do something a little different, right? There was a guy, and his job was to figure out how to get this kind of packaged into a guitar that would fit. And that is where the P90 was born in 1956. 1946. They came in a couple of iterations at first. Some of them didn't have fixed adjustable pull pieces. Some of them did, etc. They were mostly in, big hollow body guitars at first. And then they made their way, of course, into the Les Paul. And all through the 50s until the humbucker was introduced really largely in 1957. So there you go. This is kind of the first really commercially available regular sized pickup in a guitar from Gibson. To show you some of the other things you may or may not know about P90s, let's take this over to the bench, a P90 over to the bench, and I'll kind of show you the guts of it to show you kind of how this thing works and how they got the packaging into the guitar. Okay, fact number 2 is that P90s are a unique pickup in the fact that they use 2 humbucker magnets. When we think of a regular single coil, we think of a Stratocaster or a Telecaster pickup like this that has single pull pieces. These are all magnetized and they sit within the magnetic field. The string sits within the magnetic field of the pull pieces like that, right? And they go all the way through the pickup, and that's how that works. That's the traditional single coil of the time, Fender style. Well, single coil of the time, Gibson style, had always been, even from the very beginning, more magnet. So even the P13s had 2, they're different dimensions, but they had 2 magnets underneath here like this. And these are not humbucker magnets, these are P90 magnets, because remember the P90 came first. And so you have one on either side of this keeper bar, and then the screws come up through the middle. And if you'll notice, if you look at a humbucker, you'll notice that there's instead of having one, see how this one has one in the middle that services both coils? And overall, if you look at these, they're very similar in overall coil dimension and packaging. They had to be a little bit different, I suppose, but the idea is to make something that fit in a guitar. And of course, we could do another video on the humbucker, but basically the idea was take the windings that you had on this big single coil, split them in half, make them wound opposite of each other so that they hum cancel. But before that, that's what this was two big magnets with a 1/4 inch tall bobbin that was scaled then to actually fit into a guitar. That's pretty neat. And it's very unique because I don't think I can think of another pickup that uses two full-size magnets like this. The thing is that it doesn't matter because this came first, right? Whether you want to call it the chicken or the egg, this was the original format of guitar pickup, at least on the Gibson side. All right, fact number 3, and this is actually a question we get in our Q&As a lot, is that a Dogear P90 and a Soap Bar P90, so this is a Soap Bar P90, are electrically exactly the same. So they take the same, in fact, I'll just show you. Got another bobbin here. So this is a bobbin for another P90. And we pre-wind these, right? So if you ordered a Dogear from us, we would just put this together as a Dogear, or we would put it together as a Soap Bar. And the only difference is the mounting solution for that, and I'll show you why. So the Dogear was actually designed to be bolted in from the top, and that's why they call it the Dogear. And the base plate's got these two little plates, two little tabs that come out the top, or out the sides. And they were not adjustable for height, so that's why they had screw pulls, because you couldn't really adjust them. And you need a little bit more string height underneath there, so the bridge type really, really matters. But when you start to go put it into a guitar with a normal bridge height, then you need something else. And so the Soap Bar is here, and it has 2 holes for screws in the middle, and it mounts straight into, and usually mounted on top of foam or something like that. Cut up flip-flops, whatever. And so that will now adjust your height of the pickup. The screw pulls are not necessary to adjust anymore because now we have whole height adjustment here, where we did not have that with the Dogear. But they remain, obviously, because the format is the same. Now there's another kind of P90 that we have not talked about. Another format that we get a lot of questions about is the early to mid-50s staple P90, and why don't we make those? Why doesn't anybody make those? There's a couple people that do. Seymour Duncan in their custom shop makes one. But here's the reason why, is because they really only go, if you've ever seen them, they're only in Les Pauls. And the reason is because you need the depth. If you look at this pickup, it's a completely different form factor. It looks like kind of similar from the top, but it's really, the bobbin might be similar in dimensions, but it's really not. It's got these Alnico 5 pole pieces in it that are on these sprung actions that make it to where you can adjust the pole pieces in sets of 2. And so in order to do that, though, you got to have these long screws, and it's got to be a very deep cavity in the guitar. Not only that, they're actually not mounted the same way as a regular P90, and the coil dimension is different because the center of the coil is different because, hang on, those pole pieces then have a different dimension, so that makes the center of the coil a different dimension. So it's a completely different pickup, really. The goal of it was to make it more single coily sounding, but as a result, it's a very limited application, and it was very expensive to make, and so they really only put them in a few guitars, most notably, like the 1955-ish, 56-ish, somewhere in there. One of you historians will correct me, but the Gibson Black Beauties had them in the neck position. But other than that, you're not going to see them a whole lot, and that's why you don't see them in the aftermarket, because they're just a very, very niche product that only a few people would really be able to use. Fact number 4 is you might not realize this, and a lot of people don't think about it because you think single coil humbucker, that a P90 is actually quote unquote hotter than a humbucker. So if you take the humbucker of the day, which would be the PAF, which is one of these type of dudes right here, we're looking at about 7.8K to 8K right in there. It kind of depends on how you wind them, with one Alnico 5 magnet in the bottom. Now, if you take 10,000 winds of 42 and put it on here versus 5,000 winds on each, which is basically what Seth Lover did. He's basically split the P90 in half and then made it into a humbucker. What you get is net less resistance. I know it sounds crazy because you could actually have, basically, the reason it happens is because they're wired backwards. If you put them together, they'll measure more similarly, but because of the way it's wired, you'll get a little bit less resistance. So you get about 7.8 on here, and you get about 8.2 on here. Not only that, we're also talking about massive, massive magnet. It's not just the wind count. Everybody wants to lean on how many K is the pickup, but we're talking about way more magnet here than we're twice the amount of magnet here as we are talking about here. So this is actually a higher output pickup, which is unexpected for a lot of people. For the fifth thing, we're going to talk a little bit about use case here. And I had to switch microphones. Sorry, my other one was giving me some trouble, so we switched microphones, so it's going to sound a little different. But what we've got here is my Texas Toast Challenger with our Soap Bar P90s in it. Now, mind you, this is the same scale length as the Gibson, and it is also the same wind and everything. They're both my P90s, my sets of P90s. So, you know, as apples to apples as you can get. Here we go. So let's talk about use case. One of the biggest things I think people don't realize if you've never had a guitar with P90s before is how versatile they are. Now, we think of songs like Mississippi Queen, right? And put in the comments below the punk rock kind of hard rock songs that you can think of that were done with P90s. But they can also do things like this. So, here is the thing about P90s. Because they are a single coil, you can get a lot of really nice clarity if you have a good one. You know, I think a lot of the thing is a lot of folks will say, well, I've played P90s before, and in the neck position especially, they can get really, really muddy. And they can. And here's why. There's a lot of volume of wire on the coil, okay? And you get a lot of capacitance. And I know that's not a measurement that a lot of people look at when they make pickups or think about pickups, but you get a lot of capacitance because of the way the pickup is made. And so that tends to cut highs because there's just huge volume of wire on that coil. So you got to take care when you make these things to make sure that you can retain the clarity. That's a thing. I really care about that here. So it's a problem that can be solved, and once you solve it, the pickup becomes very, very, very versatile. You'll find that you'll be able to use it in lots of different situations. The other thing that people worry about is noise, because it is a big single coil, right? It can be prone to noise. So there's a couple things you can do. You can shield the pickup cavities. You can also take care, again, when you make the pickup, to wind it in such a way that it is quieter. And I know that sounds weird, but the capacitance has a lot to do with the noise. And so since we work on that, our stuff, I'm never going to say that our P90s are silent, but they are definitely quieter than like stock Gibson stuff, and definitely a lot of that Artec stuff that comes in a lot of your import guitars. For those of you that have used my P90s in the past, do me a favor and get in the comments and talk about that. If that is an experience that you have had, share those benefits with others if you would, so that it's not just coming from me. The other benefit to this clarity thing, once you can get it, is that it also makes even the more high gain punk rocky stuff sound better. One of the things you'll get with P90s, especially when you put gain to them, is they'll start to get mushy. So listen to this. So the idea is to be able to hear all the notes no matter what. When we go to our bridge pickup, which is going to be the fun one, watch. So, lots of clarity even with lots of gain. The other thing that will happen is as we play, you'll also notice that you get a lot of dynamics, and it's a really, really flexible pickup even at this higher gain setting. So watch this. So you get like this really nice flexibility where you can do a lot of different things with one pickup. That is what makes it my favorite, because you could almost confuse it for a humbucker, right? When it comes to the output, because it's hotter, when it comes to the mid-range punch, especially with overdrive, that's how I use it dirty most of the time. And then you can also mistake it for a single coil, which, I mean, it is a single coil, but you could really, really disguise it as something else when you really clean it up and play it at kind of lower volumes, tons of clarity and stuff, if you have a good one. I just think it's a super fun pickup. And the problems that people have with them, I think we've solved. I think that's not even an issue anymore. If you don't have a guitar with P90s in it, I definitely recommend getting one, because they are super, super fun. There's a bunch of ideas out there. Get in the comments if you can think of a good budget kind of entry-level guitar so that people can experiment with P90s. The Gretsch, maybe. The Stratasonic by Fender. Get one of those and then get a set of our P90s and put it in there. That's like a one and done thing. 24/7/5 scale, feels like a Strat, plays kind of like this. Super fun. I think you would dig that, and it is an inexpensive guitar to boot. These are my favorite pickup. I wanted to share it with you. Also, 10% off on all of our P90s this week at DylanTalksTone. Just figure I'd throw that out there too. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you in the next video.